welcome back, everybody. Suitably refreshed now. So that was our first session. It was very interesting. I think that it went out on the webinar you probably saw on behind us. And just a couple of the kind of responses that we got in the light of the discussion that was heard on the internet. And this voice from Namibia said, African governments should come clean on their understanding of discrimination as their national stand differs at an international level. And this contribution from Kenya says, lesbians from Kenya are asking if there's a possibility for parliamentarians to speak the way when they go back to their countries, when they don't want to talk about MSM, sex workers. And so this point is, please carry the same measures back to your respective parliaments. So some feedback that first session we had there on the webinar, and of course proceedings are going to be throughout the day on the web. So now we have our second session, and this is looking at issues related to the legal system, issues relating to HIV in the legal system and access to justice. We have a working group who are going to be representing the kind of submissions that were made to the Commission. We have half a dozen brief interventions. Please keep to within your time of 15 minutes maximum on this. So working group, if you could begin, and I think it's you, William, yeah, if you introduce yourselves each time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm William Kerfoot from the... Is this
press the button, yeah?
It has been pressed. William Kerfoot from the Legal Resources Centre in Cape Town. Our group divided the issues of the legal framework and access to justice into positive and negative aspects, followed by recommendations on both. And I'm reporting on the positive factors identified by the group as far as the legal framework we operate in is concerned. It was felt that the constitutions of some countries prohibit unfair discrimination, and although HIV isn't specifically identified, people living with HIV are protected by these provisions. There was a lot of positive input put on HIV legislation in some countries, which both prohibits discrimination and protects and promotes the rights of persons living with HIV. And it was added to that was the beneficial consequence that encourages voluntary testing and treatment. Both legislation in some instances and legal decisions in others have obliged states to provide significant appropriate treatment for HIV and AIDS, including treatment for particularly vulnerable sectors of society. And then, as we heard in the previous debate, society's attitudes have been agonizingly slow to change. There's been progress, there have been setbacks, but it is hoped that progressive legislation, law reform and legal decisions will contribute significantly to changing attitudes towards people living with HIV and AIDS. Thank you.
Good morning. I belong to William's group, and I'm taking the baton from him. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. In our group, we have realized that there are many jurisdictions that have weaknesses when it comes to HIV and the law. And the discussions that unfolded this morning have kind of covered the issues that we are going to present. So I will now proceed by way of examples, and I will focus more, in Botswana, because it's the country that I know the most, and it has been hailed internationally for having best practices. But notwithstanding the best practices that we have, there are gaps that continue to exist, thus still keeping us at the apex in terms of prevalence rates and us being the HIV hub in the region. One of the key issues that we have in Botswana is that our laws, especially laws relating to criminal law, are archaic and are useless. For instance, we have laws that say if you are convicted of a sexual offense, and for instance, rape or defilement, you will be liable to an HIV test. And if you are found to be positive and you are unaware of your status, you will get an additional punishment of 5 years. The usual punishment is 10, that's the minimum. But if you are unaware that you are HIV positive, you get 15 years, that's the minimum. And if you are aware, you get 10 years. These laws have been a nightmare to the judges because one is very, very difficult to prove knowledge, and it's very, very difficult to prove who infected who. So, notwithstanding that they have been there for the past 12 years or so, because the courts have found it very difficult to make use of this particular laws, and they are counterproductive in terms of their response to HIV and AIDS. We also have laws on MSM and sex workers, the anti-sodomy laws. The President of Botswana has also acknowledged that the law has no place in people's bedrooms. But no one is prepared to take steps to change this particular position, to kick the law out of people's bedrooms. They still want to have such a law, yet we know that the law is useless. There are issues of discrimination insofar as treatment is concerned. For instance, in prisons, we have inmates who are not Botswana, that's non-citizens, who are denied ARVs in prisons, despite the fact that they are in need of such ARVs. So they are basically left to waste away because government will not give them ARVs simply because they are non-citizens. Yet the citizens' counterparts do enjoy free access to ARVs. We also have situations where in the workplace we do not have a law that deals with issues of HIV in the workplace. And I must admit that our courts have played a key role in trying to help in this situation, to plug the gap. And one of the progressive judges is in attendance today. I don't know where he's sitting. Dr. Dingake, can you indicate by way of showing with your hand? Yes, thank you. He has played a very tremendous role in trying to promote and protect the rights of workers living with HIV in the workplace. And should there be any vacancy in the commission in the future, I would really put his name forward for nomination, because I believe the international community can learn a lot from his views. I think I don't have enough time to go on, since there are many of us. Thank you very much. Who's next?
I am Fatia Chiange. I work for the African Palliative Care Association, which is a regional organization based in Kampala, Uganda. The group came up with some recommendations, especially in relation to the weaknesses relating to the laws that exist. Firstly, we are appealing to governments, to governments and countries which do not have HIV/AIDS related laws, to make sure that these are developed. We are also appealing to governments or countries with laws to review these laws and identify the existing gaps and ensure that the missing aspects important, yet very, very important, are incorporated. We highlighted some examples of missing components, and one key one was palliative care. We are really wondering what happens, because UNAIDS still reports millions of people who progress into AIDS and eventually die. What happens to these millions of people? Are they having quality of life? Are they free from pain? Are they having support through end-of-life stage? So that was quite a key issue that we thought needs to be incorporated. There were other issues, access to pain medications, access to social security, access to state-provided legal aid. All those we thought were missing components that need to be incorporated. But we also, the group noted that states should take the right-based approach to address these issues and encourage governments to look at some existing models, such as the SADC model and also the East African Community HIV/AIDS Bill. The group also noted the importance of including, committing themselves to have budget allocations, and also to, importantly, the group acknowledged the fact that some laws are existing but nobody knows about them, and encourage governments to commit efforts and work with the civil society to disseminate and implement these laws. That is what we had as recommendations in relation to the laws.
The group moved on to the next or second component, which is the access to justice. I'm Godfrey Malembeka from Prisons Care and Counseling Association, working in Zambian prisons. Now, the first part is we wanted to look at the positives, what has been done well. And the first thing is that most countries, or a good number of countries, have free legal provisions. And in Zambia, we have the Legal Aid Board. In Malawi, they have a legal aid department. And in Niger, they have the same. That is one. The second thing is that the civil society organizations have played a major role in supplementing, complementing, challenging government, and aiding government in providing free legal representations. And in Zambia, we have the OSI helping, and also in Uganda helping the palliative. Now, the other part is that some countries have HIV-related basic legal systems in place. And these are such as workplace policies, HIV workplace policies, and they also have HIV strategic plans and operation plans. I will pass on to my friend to talk about the not so good things.
Ok, merci.
I am a lawyer from the group. I would like to talk about the negative aspects of law. So the group stressed the absence of legislation in some countries, and there is also the non-implementation of the law in the countries where these laws are existing. And the group also talked about the dissemination of the law regarding confidentiality for the people who are victims of discrimination. So the group also talked of another difficulty is that the trials are long and they are very expensive for the people living with HIV/AIDS.
Je me nomme Claude Baeto, je représente ici le réseau ivoirien des personnes vivant avec le VIH Côte d'Ivoire. Enfin, je vais terminer par les recommandations du groupe sur l'accès à la justice.
On the aspect of justice.
Terminer sur les recommandations.
I will end up for the law group. The group gave a few recommendations. I was saying that I was representing the Ivory Coast Association for People Living with HIV/AIDS. First recommendation First of all, we had to sensitize the networks and association of people living with HIV/AIDS. Equip them with the tools for access to the law. And secondly, we have to reinforce the capacities of those who are the stakeholders in justice, from the police officer to the magistrate. We had to equip them with information regarding HIV/AIDS. And third, we have to reestablish the structures in terms of accessibilities and the fees, judiciary fees, and visibility of these structures. This was very important. And fourth, we had to integrate in all national programs to fight HIV/AIDS focal points in charge with access to the law for people living with HIV/AIDS. A fifth recommendation, we have to assure confidentiality of people living with HIV/AIDS in trial situations. And we have to establish some mechanisms like audiences, closed audiences. We had also allow associations to put complaints for other situations like the unions. Last recommendation for the group was access to justice. For countries which didn't have a law on HIV/AIDS, they should support all NGOs and associations of people living with HIV to review all the laws, existing laws, and develop new laws on HIV/AIDS. Thank you.
Je pense que nous avons fini pour...
I think we finished for the justice, access to justice.
To that working group. So clearly some concerns there raised about the limited access to justice in the context of HIV. So I think let's just put the question immediately then to any government representatives or members of the judiciary from their various countries. Simple question really. Do you feel that the accusation that people living with HIV are second-class citizens in respect to their access to legal redress if they feel that their confidentiality has been breached or they've been subjected to false retesting? Does anybody wish to? Did you speak at the beginning, at the last session? You did? No. Never mind. Okay. Press your button. Very briefly then, if you have already.